Okay, everybody. Well, welcome. My name is Captain James Vladyka. I live in Benson, Vermont. I am the owner-operator of Fish Hounds Outdoors Guide Service. I've been guiding since about 2000, and it's pretty awesome to be able to do what I love. And I've met a lot of great people along the way, and I'm certainly thankful for that. So the seminar, or the webinar, I should say, that I'm going to be talking about tonight is going to be Summer Tactics for Striped Bass. And this is a funny one for me because I spend most of my time doing striped bass fishing in the springtime. As the stripers migrate up the Hudson River, that's where I spend a month early season, which I'll talk about here as we get through this. But then after they leave me, they head back out into the ocean, and that's what we're going to be talking about. So what I want to do is I want to go over the migration. I want to, kind of go over where these stripers are during the different types of the year and why and what they're doing as they're going there. And then I'll jump back to some baits and talk about what they like to eat. Then I'll talk about some rigs, some different ways to fish them. And then I'll show you a couple spots that are pretty decent that I know of. I'm not going to give you anybody's hot spots, but I'm going to give you an area to fish and give you all the tools to do that. So let's get this thing going. Can you guys see the screen? Does the screen look okay here? You can see the screen in the center. I have a whole bunch of stuff covering up stuff on my screen, so just want to make sure it's small, but it's okay. All right, let me see. I'll try to make this bigger. It got rid of my screen, but I might be able to pull this off anyways. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to full screen here. Slideshow. Okay, so now that should be full screen for you folks, I believe. I can't see anything that's going on unless I back out of that. But did that that went to full screen? Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. Is what I'll do is I'm going to go to that full screen and talk about stuff, and then I'll kick back out of that. But what happens is when that goes to full screen, I lose my full panel and all the stuff that I can see for you folks. So I'm going to go to the slideshow here and open that back up. Okay, again, there's me. That's Captain James. I'm actually fishing with my good buddy Captain Blaine Anderson, who works for Shimano, and this was just out of the Connecticut River down there in Connecticut. So really awesome fishery. That's where they end up. That's where they're probably getting to right now. So let's move forward here. All right, so understanding the striped bass yearly migration. So striped bass have a preferred temperature range from 55 degrees to 68 degrees. So basically, they want to be in that water. That's the temperature that they desire. So as the water gets colder or warmer, they move to try to keep themselves in that temperature of water. That's their sweet spot. So to stay in that water, they definitely have to migrate. And the migration has two parts. It has a spring migration and a fall migration. And it's during these migrations that the striper fishing, some of the best striper fishing occurs. Okay, so the spring migration begins in their wintering locations. So that's typically, over the course of the winter, the fish are down off Virginia, North Carolina coast. As the water starts to warm up, they start to head north. So literally, if you ever watch the temperature map, and you'll see where the water is warm down there, as that water starts to warm up here, those fish will start to migrate up through. And as they migrate their way up north, some of the fish will break off. And there's 3 different places that those fish like to go to spawn before they keep continuing their way, chasing that warmer water up through the East Coast. And one of them is the Chesapeake Bay, the other is the Delaware River and the Hudson River. So the Hudson River is where I fish during May, and I've spent a lot of time there for many years and have a good time. I'm really knowledgeable about that, and maybe we'll do another webinar sometime on just that specifically. I'm not saying that some fish don't break off into some other bays and different locations and stuff and spawn there. If they've spawned there or they were born there, they probably will go back there. Okay, so this is the striped bass spawning grounds. So what you're looking at is a picture of the East Coast here, and you're looking at Virginia down there, and you can see the Chesapeake Bay. So the Chesapeake Bay is one of the spots that they run up, the Delaware River, and then the Hudson River up closer by me. I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, but I'm way up here. This is where my home is. So if you look up where it says striped bass spawning grounds, right there where it says, well, I guess it says bass, but I'm right on the S. So right, or maybe where the G is, between the S and the G, that's where my home is. Right. So something that you can do, and a great tool that a lot of folks check out, is On the Water does this striper migration map every year. This is key. So this shows you right now, this is actually May 10th, 2019, and it starts early. It starts in April, and it'll show you, if you look down here at the bottom, you'll see by color, it shows you where the schoolies have been caught. And what this is this is all done by reports. So this is real live time folks that are catching these fish and reporting back. So there's no better tool than live action. This is like the ways of striper fishing right here. And you'll see here, so May 10th, I was in full swing on the Hudson River. So meaning up here, remember that map we just saw up top, you see where the top part of red is, where it said 30 pounder. So we were definitely catching 30-pound fish, you know, high 20s, 30-pound fish during May 10th up that way, myself and some of my other fellow charter boat captains. So, and some of those reports came from us for this area. As you can see, some of the schoolies that already made their way up to Massachusetts and working their way up New Hampshire into the Maine area. It also, if you look down here, it shows you 62, 61 degree water. You see the 51 degree water. So you remember how I talked about those desired temperatures, and that kind of shows you, you know, how those fish have moved and where they get held up. So they're first going to move up, they're going to go in, they're going to spawn, and then they're going to continue chasing that warm water up through. All right, so now we'll actually skip ahead and we'll talk about the fall migration. As the summer ends and the fall begins, the water temperatures start to cool, the stripers start to head south again. So typically around the same time, the bait fish, bunker, silver sides, you know, most of the fish that's all been held into the back bays and in the rivers and the creeks and stuff like that, all that bait starts to move out into the ocean. And when it does, that pulls all the it pulls a lot of the stripers out, and they go on a feeding frenzy there. That's when you could be out in the water and you see the birds all flying around and busting on the bait busting, the stripers busting on the bait. So if you're headed out, look for those birds. Those birds are, you know, they're going to be key. They're eating the same thing that everything else is eating. So if you see that, that's a good telltale sign. But look for that bait. You find bait, you find stripers, and that's where your best action is, because that's what they're doing. They're feeding on that bait. That's why that bait's risen to the surface, and that's why that bait's all being moved around. Typically, the fall migration extends into December along to the New Jersey coast, and even into like January down around Virginia. That's more south than me. I don't have all the great information about that. I just know from, you know, from what I've been told and other people and stuff like that, and doing some research. So right here, this is the 4 seasons. I wish I could have got you more of a clear picture here, but you definitely from seeing those other 3 pictures are going to be able to understand what the lighter area is here. So you'll see the Chesapeake Bay, the Delaware River, the Hudson River, and then up towards Boston, and as you continue up. And then look down here where you see spring, you see in the green in the spring. So that's when they're coming out, spring, the water's starting to warm up, the fish are moving up, they're headed into those rivers, into their spawning areas, or maybe they're done spawning and they're starting to head north chasing that warm water. The summer, as it gets warmer and the water keeps warming up north, those fish continue to go up. They go around Long Island, they go up into Massachusetts, they go around the Cape, and then they keep going, you know, all the way until they get to as far as they decide they want to go, up to Maine or wherever, where they hit their desired locations. Now in reverse, as that water starts to cool down, like we just talked about in the fall, now the fish are going to start moving back down, and they come back down the coast and they just head right back to where they were. So it's just a vicious circle, and there's a whole lot of awesome fishing as this vicious circle is going on. Now I'm going to skip back out of this mode here. I apologize, the screen's going to get smaller again, but I'm going to take a look and see if anybody has any questions. So okay, so now if any of you folks have any questions, you see there in that question area, we can I'll take a look there, and I'll give it just a second, see if any questions pop up. I'll address those questions, and then we'll move on. I'm actually gonna skip to the next slide here. Oops, I can't skip to the next slide until I go. Okay, so I don't see any questions here. Maybe somebody's typing, but I'll go back to it. I'll check. I'm gonna go back to the full screen again here. I'm not sure why my computer is making it work this way, but we'll work through it. Good old technology. Okay, so locals and holdovers. So with all of this being said, when the stripers are born, they usually stick around for a few years. They stick around to where they were born. They stick around the local rivers. They stick around in the bays, the estuaries for a few years. They start feeding in the spring when the water temperatures rise above 45 degrees. And this year is pretty much just textbook of why, you know, seeing that work. And so I usually bring my boat down around April 25th to the Hudson River. And we go down, we get the boat in, we do a splashdown, make sure everything's running, hope we can catch some fish, check the water temperatures, and that's basically our splashdown. Well, this year, I happened to go down a little early. I had some reports that some people were catching some fish, some schoolies. So I went down a little bit early. I had some time, and the water up here, because of all this rain, was chocolate milk and very high. So our fishing opportunities up here were very slim to none, unless you're out after the salmon, which seemed to be non-existent. At least here, Ontario seemed to be pretty good. So what I noticed is I went down and I'm fishing in Kingston, and my boat's held in Rondout Creek. So as we were saying about the fish sticking around in the local rivers, creeks and stuff, so these holdover schoolies, I mean, some up to 23 inches, 22 inches, 23 inches, those are probably the big ones. But that water temperature was already above 45 degrees. So we went out for that splashdown. We made our way out the creek, which is, you know, a mile or so run out. When we got out to the river was cold. The river was about 43, 42 degrees. There was very spotty fish, not much going on out in the river. But that mouth of that creek where that warm water was, those stripers were on fire. I think the first day we went out, we caught like 47 stripers in like 3 hours. And a lot of them, you know, 18, 19, 20, 21 inches, but so much fun. Definitely when you're coming off the winter, doing a lot of ice fishing for me up here, I guide all winter as well. So it was just awesome. And the schoolie bite depends on if you want. There's different fishermen out there. There's a fisherman that like to go out and they like to catch a lot of fish and have a lot of fun and just stay busy. And then there's a fisherman that maybe want to get that trophy, whether it not be for the wall or for that nice CPR picture, catch them and release them, and maybe wait all day long for that one or two fish. But then there's plenty of folks that want to just catch fish and go out there and not wait all day long. They may get bored, and so that's the catching and the whole fishing aspect. But so that's something that I noticed this year, and that was awesome because I actually stayed down there, and we there's about 5-6 different groups that wanted to come down and catch those fish. So we targeted those fish, and we caught a lot of fish in those 5-6 days. And as what happened there is the water temperature warmed up in the river, and as soon as that water temperature warms up to match the river, poof, those fish are out in the river. And then as I see those fish and that water temperature warming up in the river, I know that migration that started way down there in Virginia has just about caught to me. So maybe those fish are by the Statue of Liberty and they're starting to make their way up the Hudson, or maybe they're down there in the brackish water and they're starting to come up into that fresh. As most of you know, stripers are drawn and they spawn in fresh water. So that's what these fish do. They come up to spawn in the fresh water and then they'll go back out. So during the summer months, though, let's see here. As the spring progresses and the water temperatures warm up and they spawn, they'll move back out and out of the main river. They'll move out to the ocean, the beaches, and they'll start making their way up the coast. During the summer, they seek deeper, cooler water. You know, they don't want that water temperature. Typically, a striper does not really like the water temperature above 70 degrees. If you're in 70-degree water, those fish are going to be trying to get away from that. So whether they got to go down or they got to move. So a great place to fish is fishing from the edge of the jetties at night would be one way of targeting them. And then some of the schoolie stripers can be caught right off the banks at night or off the beaches. So as I mentioned previously, in the fall, the water temperatures start to cool. The bait fish will move out into the ocean, and so will the stripers, looking into eat as much as they possibly can, you know, to put on the feed bag before the winter. Okay, so with that being said, what do stripers eat? So during the different stages of their life, when they're born and as they get bigger, striped bass, they'll feed on zooplankton when they're really small, fish larvae, insects, worms, amphipods, bay anchovies, spot, Manhattan, or bunker, heron, shad, white perch, and yellow perch. So that's pretty much what they'll eat. They'll eat clams, they'll eat all kinds of stuff, but that's their primary forage. Bunker. So we talked about bunker. Bunker is a great bait to chunk with. So when you get fishermen that are chunk baiting or live lining, if you're going to go live bait fish them, what we do when we go down to the Connecticut River in the mouth there, I went out with Captain Blaine. We head out of the river and then we head up to a harbor. We get back into the back of this harbor and find where this bait's at, and I take a cast net. Cast out, get yourself these fish, put them in the live well, and then we head out to our fishing grounds. Whether you're fishing them live lining them, which is a blast, or you're chunk fishing them, that depends on your choice of what you want to do. If you do chunk them, this is kind of a good diagram right here to show you how to typically take a bunker and chunk it up. There is peanut bunker and then there's bunker, and what peanut bunker are, they're just smaller, they're the juveniles. The head is probably one of the best spots. It's been known to catch some of the big girls. So the stripers do like the head. That's probably, if you were gonna hack it all up and take a first piece, that's probably the first piece I'd grab. The tail, that tippy part, not so much. A lot of the time that's just garbage, throw it away. You'll get some folks that'll leave probably from that first blue line on there, and they'll fish with that and you'll catch fish. But for the most part, a lot of people are just throwing that away. Eels. So eels are another, they love eels. Fishing down around Block Island and stuff, eels and squids can be king. It's like striper candy. It's funny because you can go down there and fish with bunker and live or chunk or bloods or anything like that, and sometimes not have them hit, where the eels, it just seems like it's a consistent bite. With that being said, to each his own. I'm sure there's folks that may have a better opinion on different things that they like to, but just from what I know. I'm going to back out of this screen here for a second and go back to the questions. Okay, it looks like we got a question there, so let's check this out. Okay, so we got a bunch of questions here. So the first question, I wish this was bigger here so I could see it. Are stripers like largemouth females larger than the males? Also, the migration up the river, what percentage of the fish run up the river to spawn versus just instinct and don't spawn? So I don't know the exact percentage of the fish that don't spawn versus spawn. I can tell you those fish all run up the river because they're seeking fresh water. So they're seeking that fresh water to spawn in. And yes, typically we have caught some really big males, but the females, those your cows, those are definitely your bigger stripers. Okay. Eels, dead or alive? Thoughts? Does it really matter? I don't think it does, because half the time there's current. When you're fishing, I'll talk a little bit about current and the speeds that the water, should be moving on that moving tide. Slack tide, stand tide, is definitely not your best fishing for the stripers. You want that tide moving, 1.8 to 2.8, somewhere around there. So live is great. Do I think it really super matters? No, you don't want it dead. Scent is key. So just keep that in mind with old versus new versus dead versus alive are my thoughts. And I think that addresses all the questions here. Okay, so we're gonna go back to this full screen again and move on. Okay, so fish finder rig. So there's a couple different ways to fish for stripers. Actually, there's many different ways to fish for stripers. But I'm just going to go over a few of the more common ones. Okay, so up here in the top left-hand corner, you can see these are just some images I pulled off from Google Images. Just have some really, good ideas of what I'm talking about here. So Mid-Atlantic Surf Rig is what this is titled here, and that's something that I didn't put there, and neither did I put any of this information, but pretty much all of it applies. So you got your surf rod here, and what's important is, I'm not sure if you can see where I'm pointing to, but we're looking at the top left-hand slide, and as you see, as the line comes down, you'll see right here is a slider. The first thing you're going to come to is you're going to have a sinker. That sinker, the weight of that sinker is all going to depend on how fast that water is moving. Is there a rip? Is there current? Is there tide? There's times that you got to use a crazy amount of weight, and there's other times that you don't have to use next to anything. So that really depends on where you're fishing. So then that'll go into, you can run a bead if you want. You don't have to run a bead. You can run a bead. The bead stops that slider. Then you go into a swivel, go into a barrel swivel. That keeps this from twisting up. This says here 60-pound test monoliter. You really don't need that. 40 pounds, 30, 40, maybe even 50 pounds is fine. And then it's going to go into a Gamakatsu octopus circle hook. You're going to have folks that are going to, obviously circle hook is going to be your best chance at releasing these fish, not getting a gut hooked fish. So circle hooks, a lot of places are, requiring you use them. Then you're going to get other places where, the fishermen, they just want to catch these fish. They're looking at catching and keeping, and they're going to be using J hooks. And I'll have a picture of that here in a little bit. Down below that slide, you're going to see it's the same exact setup, but there's a float there. And all that float does is exactly what you can imagine. The sinker keeps it on the bottom, and that float keeps that bait just above the surface. A lot of the times when we're fishing those fish, we're going to drop the bottom, probably reel one crank, and fish right there. We don't want our bait stuffed right in the mud. We're going to keep it right at eye level for them. And on the right, all I did is I just threw this in here because this kind of shows you there's some rigs out here. There's all different types of them. These just happen to be trophy rigs. No, I'm not endorsing them, and they're not a sponsor or anything like that. But this is exactly what you need if you're going to run this fish finder rig. It comes all in the package with a certain amount, different sizes, 6, 7, 8 out. It looks like with these slider rigs. So this is, if you're going to fish with the fish finder rig, this is exactly what you're going to look for, and you can find these packages. You can either buy stuff individual and make your own leaders and stuff, or you can purchase stuff like this that's out there on the market for you. Okay, three-way rigs. So three-way, traditional three-way swivel. Then you're running your sinker off the bottom with you got a loop on that. So if you need to run it, this looks like you're running 8 ounces here. So quite a bit of weight to keep that down there. And it looks like it's still coming off the bottom by the picture here. And then they're showing you, then they're running their leader, 5 feet of 50-pound test, mono fluorocarbon. Fluorocarbon probably be my suggestions. And then they got an 8-aught circle hook there, hooked through some live bait. So they're live lining that. One thing that is kind of, in the daytime, the stripers can sometimes see this setup. So I'm not saying, some people say, bah, they're seeing anything, but sometimes they can see this setup. So just keep that in mind. Weight options, I just threw this slide in here. That Trophy Rigs company obviously puts out some pretty good product. I've used them, I think, or I've used molds that are the same. These diamond jigs that are here on the left, the pyramid sinker, I've used them, as well as the bank sinker. I've seen the walk-in sinker for sliding across the bottom. We've all used egg sinkers, drop sinkers, and then definitely the trolling sinkers. So here's just an idea of the different ones. This Sputnik type, I've never used that. It looks like I'd be retying because I'd be hung up in something, but I imagine that's for if you're getting an under tote or a back tote, that's going to just keep that from sliding on you. So keep that bait in one spot so it's not just rolling all over the place. All right, moving on here. So circle hooks. Here's just a couple of tips with using circle hooks. It's kind of tough when you switch over to using circle hooks, because a lot of folks are used to, setting the hook. You got a fish, you wait for it, and you set it. You drive it home. So up in the top left-hand corner, you're going to see, a traditional J hook. J hook is what we're all been used to using, and that is the typical wait a few seconds and send it. You want to get that hook hooked as deep as you possibly can so you don't lose that fish. The next in that picture is the circle hook, and you see non-offset there, and then there's an offset. And the reason why there's probably an X on that is because in some states that offset of that circle is illegal. So I imagine that's why that picture that I pulled is there. And then over on the right hand side, you're going to see your traditional circle hook. Now, how you can tell if a circle hook is a true circle hook is that the very point of it is going to be angled back at the shaft. If that is angled up towards the eyelid, it's not a true circle hook. And in most states that are only having you use circle hooks is going to be illegal. So down below, you'll see a few bullet points. Keep it limber. So basically, when you go to set the hook, you're not going to set the hook. So period. No, you're not really setting the hook. You're going to start reeling. You're going to put tension on it. And what happens is the stripers, they grab that bait. They're going to either start to run or they're going to have that bait in their mouth. And what you want to do is if they do suck that way down in, as you start to reel that's going to slide up through, and that's where bigger circle out hooks are better with that opening gap, because you're going to hook right into their lips and their mouth. And it's amazing actually how many times you do get a really good hook set with them. It's funny here, ugly stick fans, this is your cue, the soft tips on the front. Don't bury the hook in the bait. Obviously, if you're using a circle hook, you need that hook to catch into that fish's mouth. So don't bury that bait. Don't try to hide that hook so good that they can't see it, because all you're doing is you're just making it so you're not going to be able to get that hook set. That hook's not going to, it's going to come right out of their mouth, and you're going to have to lose more fish. Crank, don't yank. I already talked about that. Just start cranking it. Get the tension on there. Once you got the tension on there, you're good to go. If you're live lining, make sure you give it a good count of 10. Those fish are either gonna, sometimes they'll hit that bait, and they like to stun their bait, so they'll hit that bait and maybe they'll let go, or they'll hit it and they'll run, and then they'll turn that bait and then they'll keep going. So give yourself, if you're live lining or you got big chunk on there, make sure you give yourself ample time for that hook and that bait to get down in the fish's mouth. Stay away from stainless. So obviously stainless is good because in your tackle box it's not going to rust on you, but it's not good for the fish. If that breaks off or happens to be in the fish, it's not going anywhere. That fish will probably die, defeating the whole purpose of the circle hook. With that being said, I understand if you want to have hooks in your tackle box, you don't want them to rush you fishing salt, they're done, so it's a catch-22 there. Go big, go home. That's what I was saying. Don't be afraid to use big circle hooks, because it's just going to give you a better chance of hooking up there. The smaller and you got your bait on there just might make it so you can't get that good hook set. I'm going to skip back out of here and take a look and see if there's any more questions. Okay, so we do have another question. Looks like we might have answered it. Do you prefer an offset circle hook or straight circle hook? So that's kind of an obvious one. I don't often I don't really bait fish a whole lot. So for the most part, when I'm down in the Hudson River, we're trolling with spoons and stuff. I do bait fish early before the fish get active. We're running the regular circle hooks because I don't want to kill these fish. So if we're running them, not that I would prefer it, it's definitely not that. I prefer a J hook personally. But I don't want these fish to die. I want this fishery to be good for a long time. So a regular straight circle hook, big circle hook is what I'm going to be running. So that way, we're keeping some of the smaller fish in the Hudson River, where I fish more often than I do in the ocean. There's a slot limit between 18 and 28 inches or over 40 inches. This year in that month, I put 23 over 40s to the boat. Only 2 of them stayed on the boat. 2 youngsters on different trips caught a fish of a lifetime. They caught 44, 46-inch stripers, and the folks wanted to put them on the wall. I completely understand that, and I can't wait to see them. Made as a really awesome seeing the youngsters. A 14-year-old boy and a 15-year-old girl caught those fish, or 2 out of those fish there. So it was pretty awesome to see that. So with that being said, and we're catching a lot of fish, we want to see, we don't want the mortality rate of these fish to go up if we can help it. So I kind of walked around your question there, but I gave you an honest answer. Okay, I'm going to go back to slideshow. Okay, so surf fishing. So here's a few pics from Montauk, Montauk, New York. And as you see here, there's a Navionics map of the shoreline of Montauk here. You guys know, no stranger, Navionics is king for me. I use Navionics literally every single day. And I use Navionics, honestly, before I even go out of my house. When I wake up in the morning, I turn on my Navionics app on my phone and I check the weather. So I already know what I have in front of me for the day. So Navionics is a big key part of my life. If you don't have Navionics on your boat and you have a smartphone or a tablet, I would highly recommend you getting it. For the price, it's a priceless tool. It's very, very affordable for your phone and for your tablet, and as well as in your chart plotter. So here's just a few pictures. You know, there's a jetty right here with some folks fishing off from it. Here's a surf fishing picture. If you look at the map of Montauk here, you'll see this shoreline here, and there at times there's some really good fishing right here off the shoreline. So here's some shore fishing tips. Pitch those plastics. If you don't want to use bait, plastic swim baits are great from shore. There's huge fish around, so don't show them a big bite by using a lure that is, throw. I got a little bit of typo here, but throw bait, 4 inches or better. Throw some big bait out there. You want to kind of mimic all this live bait that we're having. So whether you're using artificial or not, you can throw sluggos. There's all different types of imitations on there. I think Berkeley makes a pretty awesome bloodworm and eels and stuff now. So there's all different types of artificial baits that you can use. Do know that if you are using like that Berkeley bait, don't leave them on the hook, because those things dry on there and they are rock solid. You can't even get them off. You have to like snip them off with snips. Bomb them with bloodworms. Striped bass love bloodworms, so you can fish either of those rig setups that I showed you previously. Throw out the bloodworms, throw out the chunk, live line them. You can fish them that way. Try them on the top. My usual rule of top water fishing is to wait until the temperatures reach 65 degrees. But when the migration is full swing, there's lots of hungry fish around, so don't be afraid to try the surface. It's funny, when I go up to we go up to Maine, and the time that we go up there for a Dogs event, the small schoolie stripers are just getting in there. It's funny, we go fish all these big stripers, but I can't wait to go up there and bring my dog to the beach and fish this jetty and catch these 18 to 20 inch schoolie stripers. And that's what I'm doing. I'm just pitching out a soft plastic, probably 7-8 inches long, and just pitching them out and ripping them across as the tide's coming in and the tide's going out. Cast to the current, striped bass, look for the rips in the areas where you can see the current moving. Look for shorelines with rocky points, jetties, better luck. Look around submerged rocks, piles, anything within casting distance from shore. A lot of times when you go out in a boat, you'll drive right back into a harbor or a bay, and you'll go in and fish in the pylons and the moorings and all that stuff back in these marinas. So all these spots you certainly can fish from shore if you can get permission to fish there. Sling the search baits, hard plastic lures, also great casting from shore. I like Daiwa Salt Pro minnows, Yozuris, crystal minnows, mag minnows. There's all kinds of different things that you can use. So anything that you can just get out there and search, see if you can find some stripers with. Block Island. So for us, this is one of our areas. Block Island is well known for some amazing striper fishing mid-season. So here's I talked to you about the Navionics app. If you don't have the Navionics app or the chart, you can go to navionics.com, and right on their homepage, if you look up at the top, there's a chart viewer. And if you click on that chart viewer, that's going to show you any place that you want to go, all of the Navionics map-ins with the 1 foot contours. That's all right there for you to take a look at. So I encourage you, maybe after you get off here, if you go, geez, I wonder what such and such lake looks like, or hey, that Block Island he was talking about, I want to zoom that photo in and I want to really see what he's talking about there. I want to find those good hotspots and stuff. You can go right to navionics.com on your PC after this and click on that chart viewer and zoom in. All right, so here's some Block Island tips. So prime time is usually during the new moons of July and August, but the October fall run can be on fire. There's all different sizes of fish and stuff there, so that can just be insane. Fish the edges or just inside the rips. Stripers, obviously, they're looking for bait that's affected or disorientated by the water movement. So whether that gets the bait to come up and move out, or if it slows that bait down from their normal patterns of swimming, anything that gives the stripers the edge. Stripers are actually pretty lazy fish. They're kind of an opportunist, that's what they are. You talk to a lot of charter boat captains down there and fishermen. It seems like eels and squid are some of the best bait you can use down there. There's times that folks say, hey, you know, I went out and I used bunker and I didn't catch anything, but eels were on fire. So it just seems like eels work really good down there, and squid is, I have a couple of people that told me squid's off the hook. So if you can get squid, wow, it's, you know, it's insane. Sweet spot temperatures between 62 and 64 degrees. As I said earlier, you start to reach 70 degrees water, those fish aren't going to want to be in that. They may be deeper, looking for that cooler water, but they're not really going to be in that 70-degree water. 30 to 60 feet of water on the flats at night, so fishing around the block, you look for, as I said, hey, go on after, zoom in on that map, and look for that 30 to 60 foot of water flats, because that's where those fish move for at night. In the daytime, you know, they're hiding behind those boulders, structures, breaks, they're looking to ambush the bait. You really, you know, you want that water moving 1/8 to 2. You want that, you know, if you're drifting, you know, you want that water to be moving. So that's what you're kind of looking for. If you do go out and you fish the block and you're hit slack tide or stand tide, there's some really good ground fishing there too. You can go out and get sea bass, porgy, and stuff like that. So while you're waiting for the next hot striper bite, hey, take advantage of the resources you have out there. So that's pretty much it. I actually have a couple polls that I was going to run, but not being able to see them through this screen being full screen. It was hard for me to be able to click on that. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to run those polls, and then I'm going to stay on for a little while and I'm going to try to answer any questions you might have. I hope that this presentation helped. I hope I didn't run too long where it kept your interest, and I hope I wasn't too redundant for some of the folks, but I really appreciate you coming and taking the time to stay here with me and interact with me on this webinar. And I want to thank iBass 360 for all that they do for the community. If you don't know what iBass 360 is, I encourage you to go head over there to their Facebook page, give them a like, find out, join us, be one of us, you know, live the passion. So as well as Navionics for all they do for me. Navionics, I mean, as a charter boat captain or just a fisherman, a pleasure boater, anything, Navionics is really a big part of, if you're on top of the water, part of our world for us. So I'm going to escape from this here, and I'm going to go back here to the questions and see if anybody has any questions here. I'd love to answer them for you. And I'm going to run a poll. So let's see here. Here's the poll. Questions. All right, here we poll. All right, so kind of curious, what's your favorite time of the year to fish for stripers? Is it spring, summer, fall? Probably not winter, or you never fish them. So I believe it should give you the ability to, I'm going to launch this poll right now. Okay, it's launched, so you probably got some kind of a pop-up here. And well, it's a pretty good split. It's a pretty good split. So I got half of you voted so far. Wow, it's 33% right down the board right now with 50% voting. Still only 58% of the folks voted. All right, so it looks like what we're seeing here is 38% of you said the springtime, 25% of you said the summer, and 38 said the fall. And I'm gonna have to go with the spring myself, just because I can't wait. When winter gets over with, I cannot wait to get to the Hudson River. I can't wait for those big bass to come up through there. Where I'm at in the Hudson River, I get them coming and going there. I'm about halfway in the middle of them. So I just really look forward to it. It's fresh water, so it's good for my boat. I'm not playing out in the salt and messing with all my gear and stuff. And I really just I love trolling for them and all the different, seeing all the different fish is something I look forward to. So I guess I'm gonna pick springtime for myself. With that being said, there's some summertime fishing. When I go out fish off the mouth of the Connecticut and stuff, live lining them. Wow. I tell you, we get out there and we start working a troll, find out where the fish are holding on those flats and stuff, and we'll live line those herring or those bunker. Sorry, see fishing in the river here. We'll go catch those bunker and then we'll live line them, and to watch those fish, that bunker, see it start to geek out, and then all of a sudden it's just like you see it coming through, and then it hits that, and just that power, that's pretty dang cool too. So I definitely love doing that as well. Okay, let's see, I got another poll here. Let's close this poll and let's open the other one. Okay, so next question, live chunk or artificial? So we got more people to vote this time. We got 64% of the people voted. It's looking like live is kicking butt here. So 71% live, loving that. Stripers just chasing that bait. 13% chunk and 25% artificial. And artificial can be really good. I mean, that top water action is pretty awesome when they explode on it. All right, so I'm going to close that poll and I'm going to go back to I guess I can share that stuff with you. I shouldn't even see that there. Questions. Go back to the questions here. Okay. All right, so we got a few questions here. Okay, what is optimal troll speed, time of the day, tides, etc.? Okay, so when we're trolling in the spring in the Hudson River, it's typical, 2.8, 2.6, 2.4, anywhere between 2.4 and 2.8 is probably going to be your optimal speeds. With that being said, this year we found that we were catching some of the bigger fish down a little deeper than we normally could get them to go, fishing them slower. So I think maybe them being a little lazy or just easier for them to target and track that bait. There was some times that I was like salmon fishing them at 1.8, 1.9, 2.0, fishing real slow for them, and we got some really nice fish. For me, I found that using J13 Rapalas when I'm going that slow seemed to be more effective. And I think what that is it's got that extra kick. So when you slow down, we troll primarily with the F18s, and when you slow them down, they still move, but they can be sluggish depending on it. And it's very important to have a fish hawk on the boat, because you have not only have the current from the river, you have the tides, and then you get rips and stuff like that. So that down speed on your downriggers, to have that down there is very important to know what that speed is down there, because you could be going 4 up top and only going 2 down bottom. So yeah, with those jointed, no matter how slow you go, they just got that beautiful kick to them. I should also tell you, for me, some of the hottest lures, we use a lot of Rapalas. Just you can use Yozuris, you can use other things. I have two friends that paint custom lures for us, hooked up custom baits and Schwilly lures. Schwilly lures are right out of here, out of Vermont, and hooked up custom baits are from down there. Their homes down there. So both of them can pretty much paint whatever you guys want, and they'll paint us if we get an idea of something that we like. But so for Rapala colors, clown, hot steel, bleeding hot olive, which is non-existent anymore, so if you can find them on eBay, scarf them up, purple descent, brown trout, and fire tiger. And then probably the most used, I think, recently, just in the last few years, is going to be a vampire. That vampire seems to, I think it's like it's a match the hatch kind of lure, so that's why I think it's very consistent lure, and it looks like a shad. Okay, what's this other question here? May we fish? You guys fish inland lake in May. Favorite trolling setup and what speed do you try to maintain? Also, do you use different setups for spring as opposed to fall? I don't typically fish them too much in the fall. If I do, I'm actually going down with a couple of my buddies who are charter boat captains, and I'm fishing off their boats if I have time. As being a charter boat captain, I just don't get the time that I used to because I'm usually busy doing my own stuff. One of my buddies has got a boat down in Connecticut this year. I'm pretty excited to get down there and do some fishing with him if we get time. Okay, do you use planer boards when you troll downriggers? Okay, Eric, so we do use planer boards sometimes. It can be pretty hectic on the weekdays. We can get away with using planer boards or offshore boards and keep them really tight to the boat because there's so much boat traffic. Planer boards are great. One thing that we really use a lot is we've been using lead core. So we've been there's days that lead core just kicks the crap out of everything, and a lot of the times, we got the line counter reel, so you can either go by your colors, so it could be 4 colors. We're using a 30-foot leader, so 4 colors with a 30-foot leader. Then other times we'll go just by how far out on that line counter, because what happens, you get tangled up or crossed, you cut those colors, now the colors don't run true anymore, so we just run off that line counter. So a lot of times running that line counter, we'll run 160, 187, 200, 215, 225 with that 30-foot lure, and we're trying to go those same speeds, 24, 25 seems to be, and that's down. So that 24, 25, we're gaining that. That isn't SOG, meaning speed over ground. That's down on our downrigger. So we got a fish hawk with a probe down below us, and that's giving us true speed at down where our lures are trying to run. All right, any more questions? Well, I want to thank each and every one of you guys for taking the time to spend some time with me here. I'm Captain James from Fish Hounds Outdoors. There's lots of different fishing opportunities. I'm not sure where you folks are from, but if you want to get up into the Vermont area, I live on the lower end of Lake Champlain. Lake Champlain divides New York and Vermont. We do bow fishing, we do striped bass fishing, we do crappies, perch, we do the stripers in the Hudson, we do salmon, lake trout. We even get out to Ontario during August and fish for some kings. So, and then we do salmon, we jig for lake trout up in the northern end of the lake. So if you're looking to get away and come witness the beautiful Champlain Valley that I live in, definitely give me a look at fishhoundsoutdoors.com. And I also encourage all of you to head over, if you got a Facebook account, go add me tonight. Go find James Vladyka on there. So it's JamesVladyka right here on the screen. Find me on Facebook, add me, share your adventures with me. I love seeing other people's fishing adventures. So I hope you all have a safe and successful season, and I hope to see you out in the water. Thank you very much.